go slap that guy in the face.
All right. You want to do this?
Take it away.
Welcome to a BS podcast. We finally have a mixing board back. So Mark and I are here together and trying out the new mixing board. It's the same board, just a brand new one. So hopefully this one lasts longer than 2 months. But we will soon find out, I guess. So the topic for today, Mark has been doing something new, and I have been getting bits and pieces of it, and he started to tell me about it as we were getting ready to record, and I says, why don't we just talk about that? So Mark is going to school right now, not like college. It's a, what would you call it, a vocational type school? Because, yeah, I mean, it would technically be
it'd be a vocational school, but one subject.
Yeah.
You know, it's accredited, but it's accredited by the Coast Guard.
Okay. So Mark is taking this vocational schooling to obtain his 100-ton master's captain's license. So he can basically drive big boats and ferries. Well, big to us, because that's still not the biggest.
No, it's pretty small. In the eyes of the maritime industry, it's small. It's like having a chauffeur's license, more or less.
But to a redneck like me that's grown up his entire life either in the hilly part of Indiana and currently lives in the flattest part of Indiana you can find, that's a big boat.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I always thought like 28-foot tritune pontoons were big.
Yeah, that take up about the engine room on most of these crew boats and ferries out there. No, that is I mean, we've talked about it in some different ways, and that's kind of where I've made the choice. I don't know, talked about it for a while, made the choice a couple months, 6-8 months ago. Actually, kind of left I'd say somewhat successful business of my own that I had, and I just realized where I was heading wasn't where I wanted to be. You know, just kind of lost the passion for it. I'm still doing it, and hopefully my boss isn't listening to this, getting the 411 on my future. But no, I am currently enrolled with a captain's license program to get my. It will be my 100-ton kind of classification. I'm getting in through on the small vessel side of it, so I will start off with a 25-ton license. But after that, it's just sea time. It's just more sea time.
I'm going to pause you right there. What is a 25-ton license? What kind of boat would that?
Well, so it's a hard thing to say. There's a calculation for it, but it's displacement of the boat.
Okay. So the boat can displace 25 tons.
So and that's what's with these boats. Boats aren't measured. They are and they're not. And I'm going to screw this up. And if somebody who really knows what they're talking about is listening, they're going to say, "Don't ever give this guy a license." But
he just started the class. He's only been in for a short period of time.
It's the way boats are measured is by how much weight they displace in the water.
Okay.
Like my Nautique, that's realistically a 2.5-ton displacement boat.
Okay.
So
that was kind of what I was getting at. You're putting something in my head that I can envision.
Yeah, it's kind of the shape of the boat, and what the boat's going to do is going to be on kind of how it displaces weight. But so like for us in this area, and northern Indiana, the easiest way I can describe it is almost everybody in this area has been to Mackinac Island. Those ferries that run across, take you across there, like with Shepler's, them are 100-ton. You got to have a 100-ton license. Some of those ferries, I think you can get by on a 50-ton, but I don't know their measurements, so I really couldn't tell you 100% for sure what it is. But that is my dream, is to leave my 100,000 plus a year job to to go run ferry boats around. But just that's I grew up. I have a picture at my house. I am what was I? 3 weeks old, and my parents have me in the lake, and we grew up in that dirty lake water. Both sides of my family, us, it's the water. It's one of those things that it hits me different, and I made the decision that, hey, I'm gonna change my career, and I know we're supposed to be talking about the school. We'll get to that, but it's I was never a great student. I knew I wasn't going to go to any schooling. I had some opportunity, and screwed most of that all up myself. I had some opportunity for some education after high school, but I didn't go that way. It really wasn't for me. But now it's crazy. Everything I struggled with in school, I have none of those issues now, because it's subject matter. It's the subject that I'm so intrigued by, so interested. But we were talking earlier. There's a lot of these programs out there. They're guaranteed to pass, and what they are guaranteeing, you're going to have a chance to pass it. You're going to be able to take these programs and these tests until you pass them. And it's not. It's like trying to think of a good way to describe it. Like when you go take your CDL. When I took my CDL test, eons, 17 years ago, 15 years ago.
Before it got stupid. That was, we were going through, and I was talking with the test proctor, and I'm just trying to feel them out, see exactly because I did it through a municipality. So the municipality showed us everything we had to do just to pass it. Well, I was a little bit more curious than that. And he told me, we're not wanting you to be a professional truck driver. We're just wanting to make sure you can handle a truck. And that's the same way, like all this education, this schooling, these tests and all that, none of it really says you can drive a boat. In the schooling, because there's two parts to this, none of this says you can drive a boat. It just says the rules. Because there's a lot of different things, and I know, Bob, you kind of grew up on the water and stuff like that, but there's like red right returning. If you're returning to a port, you always have a red buoy on your right side. Well, there's a counterpart to that where the green buoy would be on your left side. But then it teaches people port and starboard. Use port and starboard, and I've tried doing that in everyday life. Instead of left, say port, and right, say starboard. And I was building boats, and all of our prints had port and starboard and and bow and what all them terms.
Oh yeah,
I never did figure them out.
And that's
I knew that weld symbol meant do this weld.
and there's no reason. It's just like that weld symbol. That don't mean anything to me because I don't care about it. But that's stuff you could tell me all about, and that's it's such a neat thing that everything I've always struggled with, like now, it's not that. It's the subject matter is something that I want to know. I tell you that, like the place I'm at now, and I won't say the name right now. There might be an opportunity here in the future. We talk a lot more and maybe with somebody on this.
Yes,
but
we're hoping for that.
Yeah, but they're not you're guaranteed to pass. You're guaranteed to learn, and that's what
I'd rather have that anyway.
Yeah, well, let's just say for argument's sake, I could be up in Mackinac running ferries, and there's some kid with his dad there that are asking questions, and anymore you got to be careful because you can't just give an answer and they take your word for it. They're going to Google check you, and next thing they know, their captain doesn't know anything. Well, I knew it long enough to pass the test. Then you're just going to get a lot of people who are scared to get on a vessel that you're under control of. I think you should know it. For me, I like wrenching because I know it all. I don't want to say I know it all. I know enough of it. I can get in an argument with a lot of people, I guess. But now, learning something new, it's just every day I'm learning something about subject matter I'm really passionate about. And that is, yeah, I try not to. I haven't talked to you much about it just because I get to my wife, I get as giddy as a little schoolgirl. It is something I get done with the like a video class. I am so amped up. I can't go to sleep. I want to study. I was telling you earlier, I print this stuff out and I'll go, I'll do my weightlifting, then I'll get on the treadmill or the rowing machine and just go to town and read this stuff. And I got to watch it, and kind of limit myself to about 45 minutes because I'll lose track of time. But that is, it's a really neat thing. I really do enjoy it. I mean, I got a long road yet until I'm anywhere, because that's part of it. I guess we're talking about, that's the class part. That's the, the rules. It's one of them's rules of the road. You got to be able to plot charts on maps. You got to be able to, figure out all these theoretical positions on a map. It's stuff that you might not need much of. I can't speak to it. The boats I've operated, they don't have any electronics, or it's never been something where I'd have to tell you what the deviation of our course is. But you're learning something new, and there's a, I don't know what it would be considered. It's like I'd call it a blog. I know you called it something different before. It's just like the old chat rooms almost.
Yeah.
But it's like there's like a chat room, and it's all the people who are going through this with me, and a lot of those guys they come from different parts of the industry, or they're like me, just trying to break in, and they're saying, no, we don't need any of this. Well, go ahead.
I don't remember. Wasn't John Deere? Was it when I was at Case? I think it was when I went to service school for at RPM up to the Case and Racine, or it was John Deere service school. I don't remember which one of them it was now, but one of them, that drove me nuts. And don't get me wrong, it was a good tool, but they had a internet forum that was just for that brand of tech.
Mm-hmm.
And you could go in, and it was like a chat room. And I know some other guys that said it could, there was, you could get a lot of good help in there. But at that, this will sound funny, at that time, I didn't like the internet.
Yeah.
Must have been at John Deere then.
Well, that's Owen. He has something like that with Bobcat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's great if it's used the right way. But that's probably a whole subject that could go on a whole series on when's it a good time to use the internet and when's it not. And
it's just nice that it's just for the people that are doing what you're doing, though.
Yeah.
Because that keeps some of the stupid out.
Oh, it does. I mean, there's plenty of stupid that gets in there, and the stupid's never a question; it's always a comment. And it's just like chart plotting. Why do we need this? My phone can tell me. And you're right, but the way I look at it is, you and I gotta diagnose. We gotta diagnose diesel engines with old tools that you just measured. You measured stuff. You smelled it. You looked at how it ran. How much
you set it on fire.
Yeah, you set it on fire. That's the kind of stuff we did. Now you got computers. I believe, because some of the best guys on these computers, they're the old school guys who wanted to learn, and they knew the old way, and that made this new way so much easier. And that's the way I see it with modern, GPS technology and plotting and charting and all that.
Well, and I guess that's what I was getting at, and I know we're kind of off subject a little bit, but I find it interesting, so we're going to go that route for a minute. But like this little chat room or whatever you're talking about, to me, that's the part I like about it, is it's not the feel, like, from a mechanic standpoint, you're not chatting with the technical assistance guy at the factory.
Yeah.
You're talking to other people like you, because, and I know this for a fact from talking to my brother and his career, a lot of times nowadays when you talk to somebody at technical assistance, it's a dude with a friggin' college degree that's never worked on anything in his life. He has a screen in front of him or multiple screens in front of him, and they have an algorithm. And when you start telling him you have these symptoms, and on this particular machine, this set of engine serial numbers or machine serial numbers. Well, we've seen with these same symptoms, we've seen 100,000 of this particular failure. And that's what the technical assistant guy, he has no idea how to diagnose it. He's got a computer with an algorithm.
Yep.
And whereas I would much rather have those guys like you're talking about in that chat room that are basically doing everything that you're doing, whether it's learning how to plot a map, whether it's diagnosing an engine concern, whatever the case may be. At least I know I'm talking to somebody that may have some different experience, but has got the same tools I do and is actually doing the same thing I do versus some. And I'm not trying to bust anybody's chops that went to school. It's just that's one of my problems with people. Well, if you want to work here, you got to have a college degree. The problem is the only thing a college degree really does for most people is it shows a business owner that for 4 years, you showed up on time. You showed up most of the time, probably on time, and you completed a certain number of tasks so you could get said diploma.
Yeah.
You don't have any experience in what we're doing, but you showed up every day for 4 years or 2 years or 6 years or whatever it was. And so I could see that being able to chat with those other people being a huge benefit.
No, it is, and it's. I mean, I'd about describe it as going to the bar after a class, because that's what it is a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, griping about this, griping about that. But I mean, you know me, I'm all about any information I can get, whether it's useful or not. I'm gonna try to get and listen to, that's so that's kind of where I'm at right now with like the education part, and all that does is tells you can you can recite or you know enough of the rules and the lingo. We talked, there's a part on there you got to be able to identify knots and not knots as in nautical miles an hour, but knots as in like knots with rope, and it's a lot of stuff that somebody who's been in the industry 10, 15 years, they might think it's really stupid, but somebody who's brand new to it, they might have no clue, and they could be tying your boat up, and they're just tying it up like it's their tennis shoes, or they got the old theory, if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot, and that don't always work, but that's the educational side of it. But one nice thing the Coast Guard does, or the licensing agency, you have to have what's called sea service. Like we're in the Great Lakes, that's where I want to be. So I'll have inland and Great Lakes, because I have sea service with the Great Lakes, and you gotta it's a year, and on small vessels, it's anything over 4 hours counts as a day. Now, just since I've known you, had 3 lake houses, and I've lived at one of them, and I pretty much live at this other one. It's 6 miles from my house. So the getting those 4 out, I get that every day. Mm-hmm. But when we first met where I was living, every single day when we'd come home, we went out in the boat. As long as it wasn't froze. And that was because I talked earlier when Bob, I called and we had a little heart to heart about that. What should I do? And should I leave this and go get on a big ocean vessel to get my hours, or not ocean but Great Lakes, and talked with the guy who helped me out with my MMC, just getting my credentials going, and he let me know. He's like, well, there's a few caveats to this, and one of them is, I feel as though I should say, if anybody out there is listening to this thinking like, hey, is this something for me? Definitely use somebody in a licensing company. This is you're dealing with military more or less, and it's all paperwork. Pay somebody to do it. It doesn't cost that much. I think total in my MMC I got like $1,000, and that is my TWIC. It's everything, and I paid somebody to do every bit of it. But I mean, I just got my stuff that has been issued to me. But also don't take anything I'm saying is right. You know, do your own research, and talk to people. But he was letting me know, like, hey, there's a small vessel waiver, and what you can do is, you won't start with your 100-ton, but you take all the same testing for 100-ton. I have to go. With the way I'm going, it'll be another 180 days. I'll have to log another 180 days before I get 100-ton. I'll log 90 days, and then my license will be upgraded from 25 to 50-ton. I'll log another 90 days, and it'll be from 50 to 100. And that all has to be on the Great Lakes. At this point, no inland lake time counts. Because I want mine to be, Great Lakes. And, you got Great Lakes, near coastal, and you got all kinds of different licensing. If you want to, you got 100-ton and 200-ton, that's going to be your ferries, your crew boats, that type of stuff. But you can get a towing endorsement. There's so much stuff you can do. And like for me, like, Bob, you got your smoking, I've never seen a guy that likes cutting wood and you make YouTube videos out of it. I've never seen that, but that's the water for me. And well, I'm lucky enough that I can make a pretty decent living with it. But every time you light that thing, wait for you to send your eyebrows.
You couldn't get that lucky.
But no, it is. I feel as though I'm rambling, and it's something I'd really like to give a whole episode. I mean, I would, and we've talked about some different things. I'd like to, once it's done, so I can tell you from A to Z, because I feel as though I'm giving some bad information right now, because there's stuff that I know just enough to be dangerous about.
No, but I think I still find the what you're doing at this point has been, pretty interesting, and somebody that's been a mechanic for as long as you have, and then are pursuing this other. To me, it's like when you and me were working together at the city, and I made up my mind I didn't want to wrench anymore. I wanted to go weld full time, and you remember that. It's like I just started every night. I was hauling drop from the
oh my God.
from work home.
And that's all you ever
night.
wanted to talk about too. Hey, what do you do with this weld? What do you do with that? Just shut up about welding, Bob.
Well, but it was easy because we had Kevin at the time, and Kevin had spent all them years out working on drag lines.
God, the stories that guy had. Not even about weld, just like breast milk and that kind of weird stuff.
Yeah. Kevin was an interesting individual. But, it was so nice because I could take stuff in and show it to Kevin, and Kevin could give me feedback on it. And it made it, because I was basically going to the University of YouTube, and I was getting instruction there, but then I had a physical person that could critique it and tell me what I was doing. Like, I remember that one of the first times I walked in, and he just looked at I never even got it out of my hand. He was like, you got too much torch angle. I'm like, what? He was like, your torch is tipped too far back. He could tell by the way the weld bead looked that I had too much torch angle. And he was like, you need to tip your torch up a little, don't put so much lean angle on the torch.
That's funny you say the University of YouTube, because that was where you're at now. When you came in, did your weld test afterwards, when you people, we were friends, and people asked me about you, and we're all, this, that, and the other, like how Bob learned what he's doing. Well, he taught himself. Like, the guy just YouTube this stuff. You knew how to weld, but you didn't know how to, you can TIG weld magnesium. Mm-hmm. You got the stuff, we go TIG weld a flammable metal, and it's all been through YouTube and trial. But that is what's so cool, because I use YouTube a lot with my captain stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, I don't, it's hard when you don't know what you don't know. You don't know if what you're looking at is exactly right, and that's the part I have an issue with YouTube. But there's a lot of people out there, and I can't speak to all of it, but you could speak for welding or mechanic or diesel stuff. There's a lot of people out there giving bad information, but there's so much great information.
I was going to say, and that's the thing. The information that's available on YouTube. The thing is you can't get trapped by watching one channel all the time. And at first, when you're, to me, what I learned by doing learning all the welding, or especially it was mainly because I had stick welded and MIG welded, but this was really to get into on the TIG welding side. I watched all kinds of different TIG welding stuff, but what you found was when you found the right information, it was consistent between the different channels.
Yeah.
And then once I figured out who was given the good information, those were the guys that I quit watching the other ones, and I just watched the ones that I knew were producing that good information.
Yeah, and that is, because Jody, from he was
weldingtipsandtricks.com.
Yeah, he was a
right.
big guy, and I mean I've went there. You can get on his. I follow him, and you can search his stuff, and you're just trying to find, hey, like, what's the best downhill rod? Mm-hmm. You used to have to call. For me, it's WSI in Fort Wayne. You used to have to call them up, and I'm welding some spring steel out of position, and the guys, most of the time, if you got a certain person, it's like he knew, he did it. Now you don't know if the guy you're talking to knows, or if he actually has a procedure book. I don't call those guys anymore. I just call you, like, hey, I'm doing this. What do I need to do? And you're gonna lecture me 4 hours about preheating it. And then,
depending on what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's everything. Well, we blacksmithed. Oh, we got to heat that to non-magnetic. It's like, whatever, man.
So, and that's the thing is, like, and that's, I still battle with that. One of the field guys was going to have to go out, and they were just trying to put weld up a crack on a quick coupler on an excavator, and basically they were just trying to hold it together until they could get it, finish up what they were doing and get it back to the shop. But I told them, I was like, don't use the rod on your truck. I got something better in the shop. And they come over and got it. But I know more often than not when I've talked to the guys about preheating stuff. Because, I mean, if you're going out and welding on cutting edges and buckets and stuff that's got high carbon steel, because a lot of our stuff is AR400, it's like, if you don't preheat it, it's going to look like it's burning in, but there's no fusion there.
You don't deal with TikTok?
No.
Okay.
That's Chinese malware.
So, yeah. Where's your Alexa at? So
I got my tinfoil hats in here someplace.
You seen any of this stuff? And this is kind of on the subject of like good information, bad information, and knowing your source. That Dave's Auto Center talking about warming up your diesel truck.
Yeah, I just seen it because a bunch of the TikTok stuff shows up on Reels.
Yeah, and I figured
shorts
at this point they're probably all fleeing to one of the 400 different platforms. But that guy come out and he said some controversial stuff, and I think the mechanics kind of maybe knew what he was talking about, but he says, get in your truck, start it, don't let it warm up. And I think everybody's thinking of a 1980 or a first gen Dodge. That was a lot tighter engine. Mm-hmm. Like you had the thermal expansion really affected those. The reason you can't let these new trucks idle is like you were just wet stacking that DPF.
Yep.
And that itself is going to cause more issues to the engine. It's not
it's a different animal.
Yeah, and it's not great for the engine, but it is such a bad thing, and I don't want to get way into this, but it's like it was real easy for people to go out there and get some cheap views by stitching his video.
I never understood. I was glad to see that the guy put it out there. I didn't comment on it or anything when I seen it, but I was glad to hear him say that, because even if you go back to that first gen Dodge like you were talking about, I think about my old TDI Golf that I used to drive, or even my Jetta when I had the Jetta. Neither one of them had block heaters on them. When I would go out to start those, I never let it, and those didn't have after treatment. I mean, those were I think my Golf was a 99 and the Jetta I had was 01. But like those, when it's 10 degrees outside, there's snow covered on the car, I'd go out, I'd start the car, I'd push the snow off, I'd go back inside, pack my lunch, and go back out. That thing idled for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you'd have left that thing sit there and idle for 2 hours, it would have never cleared the windshield off. It's a diesel engine. It's an air compressor. All it's doing is moving air. It's not building any heat until you get RPM in it. I would, that old stuff, 5-6 minutes, let it run long enough that I knew it had oil circulating through everything before I jumped in it and took off. And even then, I didn't take off raw dogging the thing.
Yeah.
I took it easy until the engine temperature came up, and then I raw dogged it then.
Yeah. Well, and you're exactly right. But some of the comments I've seen, what that's doing to your engine, it's like that's hurting your transmission more than your engine, because you're going from nothing to go on a cold hydraulic system, and it's a low viscosity oil, so it's not as horrible. But I liked it. I think a lot of people tried to get some, but that's just the thing. That dude's been run through the ringer on a few different things engine wise, but I think everything I've heard the guy say, as far as I can prove, he's always been pretty factual with his stuff. But
and there's other parts of that stuff that's experience based too, and you might not find it true in your experience, but he may be dealing with a totally different group of individuals.
Oh yeah. He could be having, like, pretty much the trucks I take care of. They're started in the morning, they're shut off at night. And they idle 90% of the day. And it's like this is why we got to put high idles on them. This is this is why we have the issues we do at the mileage we do. And he's and I'm not wanting to make this about him, but like the people I listen to, I try to self-verify as much as I can. I don't know much about much, but I know a little about everything. And if I can watch somebody or listen to somebody tell me, it's like, well, he's been factual on everything I knew, I'm going to listen to him. Like that dude could come out and say some real weird stuff. I'd have no reason not to believe him. But yeah, that whole, like, how you've taught yourself to, how you've honed your welding skills and added to your arsenal, it was really cool, because that was one of the few YouTube educations I've ever seen actually work. But the work you put into it too, though. I mean,
when we say that, it still wasn't free.
Oh no, I watched that
because that was at the time I was doing a side job for somebody. I was building some stuff, and the MIG welder I had at the time wasn't big enough. So when I bought, I was already planning to buy a bigger MIG machine, and I bought that, but it was a power unit with a wire feeder, and it had the ability to hook a dry rig or a scratch start TIG rig to it. And so that's what I wound up. That was my phone. So that's what I did. So I had a way to at least get into TIG welding. And then, as you remember, that winter I saved my overtime all winter long and in the spring. And I can't tell you how many times I was in and out of Purity. I thought Chad was going to punch me in the face a couple of times.
But it wasn't until that morning that you made on the thermal arc or whatever machine you bought. It was that because it was between that, what you got now, and a Miller, right?
Yeah, the Miller 210.
Yeah, you were going back and forth. Well, the Miller can't do as much. Well, no, there's an upgrade kit.
And the one thing that finally got me to make up my mind on that was actually Chad and the experience we'd had, that Synchro-Wave 210 that we had.
Yeah.
Under warranty, I sent it back to Miller 3 times.
Yeah.
And it was like, oy. And they told me, they were like, we haven't had any of these come back under warranty.
Where were those ding dong welders that you got now?
Them Everlast?
Yeah, too bad those weren't around.
Well, and they were, but no, I'm lying. They weren't. They come on shortly after that. After I bought that Thermal Arc, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know if they were out then. I didn't know about it. But like those, and you know me, I was hardcore on. I wasn't buying anything unless I had a dealer that could service it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it wasn't just the welder. It's the welder, the plas table, the lathe, the mill, the surface grinder, the thousands and thousands of clamps. Your strong
lathe
hand
tooling,
lathe
mill tooling,
the bench you built, the new air compressor. You got 2 of those because one of the welds on that were screwed up from Snap-on.
That was hilarious.
And it was all that, but instead of going to Ivy Tech, and nothing wrong, going there and getting an education, right. you just bought all this stuff.
And I had looked into that, and I knew the Ivy Tech campus that's local to us has a fantastic weld shop, but they don't have any instructors there.
Yeah.
If you're going to do welding classes, you had to drive clear to Fort Wayne. And it was like, I don't have time to drive back and forth to Fort Wayne. But I can buy a machine and I can watch this stuff on YouTube and I can try to duplicate what they're doing on YouTube at home for a couple hours every night with no drive time.
Yeah. And you insured yourself too, though, doing this, because you'd figure out how to do it, but you also went and looked for how to see if it was right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like anybody can show you, like, this is walking the cup, this is your weave, that here's how you feed wire. But you'd figure out, like, you're getting undercut.
And I would cut stuff apart, and I would acid etch it. And
yeah, because you had, at that point, you had me at work telling you, the old farm way we did it, like, there's no such thing as too much heat. You're melting 2 pieces of metal together. That's how we fix stuff.
And I can assure you now, there's a such thing as too much heat.
Exactly. And you...
John Deere's really good at doing it on small parts.
Yeah. and that is, I mean... YouTube is a great tool if you know how to use it and you want to, and that's if you want to. I think that's the whole.
Yeah, you got to be dedicated to it.
Oh,
I mean, you're gonna have to, you might learn a lot faster going to that welding class than what I did.
Well, you stopped shooting though. I mean, you weren't you gave up. You sacrificed a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Beep. got fire FCC guy or FAA or whatever.
Well, I don't know.
Edit that out.
I'm not editing that out. I've had to edit one of these because Ace said who he worked for in the middle of the podcast, and that was the longest thing I've ever done in my life because I had to go back through and listen to the entire podcast trying to find that because I wasn't smart enough to write down where we were at in the podcast.
It's hard to listen to you.
It is.
Ace ain't that bad, but it's hard to listen to you.
That's what. So, back to your boat and stuff. Is there a bunch of stuff like Ace, like all these signals and stuff that he has to memorize? Is there stuff like that you have to memorize?
So the Coast Guard, and once again, put the disclaimer out there. This is the way Mark sees it. Is somebody who's been studying this for not too long. The Coast Guard only regulates, they control the whole test. There's only one part that has to come out of their book, 100% their questions. The questions, they got to be different. They can't just show you old questions. They got to be different but close.
Right.
And that's rules and regulations. And then that's, different signals you see. So they got signals at night, which, would be lights, flares, stuff like that. Then they got what's called day shapes. You call them a triangle, but it's like an inverted cone, balls, and what color is the ball? Is it, and what does it all stand for? But yeah, there's a lot of that stuff.
And obviously, you don't have to memorize lighthouses anymore.
Yeah, you don't. But you also got to know. And funny enough, I learned this in Munising about range lights. They got lights out there that if you're looking, if you know where port is, you're wanting to get back to your dock, and you're looking towards town. You kind of scan the horizon. There's a range light. And as long as that's showing red, you're not in the channel. In Munising, they also have a nice tour up there called the Shipwreck Tour. And it's because there's a channel, and it's a small channel that gets you back into town. But yeah, it's range lights and a lot of different aids of navigation have done away. There's still some working lighthouses out there, but it's technology.
I just remember because we did one of the lighthouse tours up at the one at Mackinac City.
Yeah,
and they talked a lot about that. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's that to me. It's just I don't know. It's something I got passionate about. Like I used to have with mechanicking. Everything I wanted. Like you're wearing a Macco shirt or Mac shirt right now.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in the day. That's all I owned. As everything. Everything said Snap-on or Mac or SK, whatever. But I lost that some time ago, and now it's nice to have that back. It's nice to be excited and amped up for something, but
That's good.
And there's a road ahead of it because I'm gonna have to pretty much start over, and at 41 I gotta start over and go back to being the bottom guy because none of these places are going to hire you. I got my captain's license. Well, what's the last ferry company you worked for? Is that what they're going to say? I don't know, but that's what I'd say. Who's the last ferry company? Oh, XO, repair facility. Like, oh, yeah. How good are you at throwing rope? And I got no problem doing that, but it's just, I might not have a problem with it. My wife might, but she's pretty on board.
I know what you mean about getting excited again.
Yeah.
Because we'd talked. I was getting pretty. I was on a project at work that I really didn't want to do. I really didn't like doing. And it was all new fab. And I know this will probably sound funny to a lot of welding people out there. Why wouldn't you want to do new fab over doing repair work? Because I prefer repair work. I'm one of the weirdos that'll run a carbon arc all day and it doesn't bother me.
Underneath the trailer.
I will chase cracks through something with a carbon arc, cutting out old welds and re-welding it and repairing it and making something. And I think that come from being at the fuel shop where it was like we were working on a bunch of old stuff, and it's not like you didn't just buy a new one, you repaired it. And I enjoy that. And when I got pulled off of my new fab project, almost done with it, but got pulled off of it, and they hand me a rock head off of an excavator and said, we need all this padded up, hard-faced, and ready to go back after the winter shutdown. And I was like, oh yeah, I have never, it has changed my outlook so much.
I was wondering why you haven't been calling pissed off that much.
Oh my God, I love it.
That's funny you're saying. It's funny you're saying that, like on repairs. So one of the there's a question that they ask, and it asks about bulkheads in a boat. Asks about how you repair a damaged bulkhead, and one of the questions is straighten the bulkhead as much as you can, and then make whatever welding, whatever reinforcements you have to the said bulkhead. And that question, like the answer is real written out. Like, if you wouldn't know the answer, that's the one you'd probably pick. And then one of the questions, or one of the answers is, well, you just shore up the damaged bulkhead. You don't try to straighten it. Watertight, well, yeah, that's the one you want to do, because if you try to straighten it, you're going to rip a hole in something, or you're just going to make things worse. But when I seen that, I'm like, man, old Bob would have something to say about this. Now, it is, that's for myself. I'm definitely excited. I'm ready to start. I'm ready to put this part of my career, my life. I'm ready to turn the page on it, but it's not going to be, as much as I'd like it, it's not going to be tomorrow, but.
And I'm not trying to throw you under the bus here, so bear with me.
Go throw me. Throw me.
But I think it's good that you're doing the schooling and stuff and seeing how excited you are, because you have a tendency to, you're really excited about something, and 2 or 3 weeks later, it's really excited about something different.
Oh,
but
yeah.
this has been a constant for months now, and seeing you progress in it and listening to you about your progression in it, I can tell that this is different than other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's, and you're right. I've definitely.
And I won't make fun of you. I don't
I
want
know
to
you're not making fun of me.
because when I met you, I thought you were nuts, and you've actually rubbed off on me a little bit, and the only thing it's done for me has made me more money.
That's all I can promise. No, it's you're exactly right, and I don't know. You done something this long, and there was a point in time where it was like, oh, this is my calling. It's just not. It's not anymore.
Well, and that's the thing. You and I have had that conversation a million different times, but it's not like it was when our parents were growing up. Because like when I was growing up, I remember talking to my mom and dad, and my mom didn't, when I was a kid, didn't work. She was just a stay-at-home mom. But I remember, especially and some of my dad's relatives that worked labor type jobs. Like some of them, like Dad had a cousin that worked from the time he was in high school, and I think it got sold, but he basically retired from it. Dude worked at a sawmill his entire life. And like when he would go on vacation.
Speaking of things I've been excited about.
The dude didn't have paid vacation. But the guy that owned the sawmill would walk up and just hand him a wad of cash and said, have a good vacation. It was, and those people, I grew up being told that if you're, you go someplace, you work. And I remember the first car dealership I worked at, when I started there, and I was there for 6, 7, 8, maybe 8 years. I don't remember. I'd have to sit down and do math. But when I started there, I just figured that was the place I was going to retire from, because that's, that was the way I was raised. But you were right. It's like anymore, you can't go someplace and work for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and jump ship. But if you go someplace and you work for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then bail out and go someplace else, that almost makes you more valuable as an employee, and it makes it better for you to be able to negotiate your wage because you have so much more experience.
Oh, yeah.
And there might still be some family-owned businesses that are super loyal.
Yeah. Oh, they're out there.
The place that I work now, there's some guys that have been there for a long time.
You work for one of the last places, probably what you just said, family businesses
that's loyal to has some loyalty to their employees.
There's downsides to it too, though.
Yeah, but there's a lot of places that I can't think of any place. RPM was I liked working RPM. I thought those guys were great, but there were some people that had been there from the original owner to them as there have been 3 different owners by the time we were there.
Yeah.
So, and nobody was sticking up for them, and they'd worked, and we had guys that we worked with there that had been there for
longer than I was alive, by 1 month.
30 years. And that was when I worked at the fuel shop. I mean, the same couple had owned that. That had been a family-owned business for many, many years. And when the couple retired that owned it, they sold it to the people that I went to work for. But like, and they did fairly good. But I remember the people that I worked with talking about some of the stuff, like they had to kind of fight with them over. It's like, I understand we're new employees to you. We've been working in this building doing the exact same work for 30 years.
Yeah.
And no matter what, in reality, the only thing that really changed at that location was the name of the business. I mean, it was still operated basically exactly the same. It still had all the same people working it, other than the store manager was different. But all the people doing the physical work were the same people, doing it the same way. And it's like, the new owners don't care. That was... And I remember them having some beef over that, but anymore, I think you were right. You just can't stick it out. Now, I will be honest, I'm getting to a point now that I have to kind of maintain where I'm at.
There's a horse here.
Yep. Hi, Duke. Bear with us for a minute. My daughter's dog just come into the barn. I presume that my daughter is here too. What?
I need the key for the G6 since you have it locked.
Oh.
Because it's,
Give her some money too.
What? It's in front of the garage.
I know, it's sitting in the driveway and you have it locked. I don't know why.
I didn't realize I
Because
locked
he's
it.
psycho like that.
Apparently.
You are just a
I'll put this back in the house.
Okay,
black
thank you.
and gray mess.
Take your dog with you.
Come on. And he likes to run through the snow with his face down.
All right. So, I don't know where we were before my daughter let the pony in.
No, you're going to try to save your butt on getting fired from your job.
Oh no, it's just I think once you get to a certain point, you gotta stick it out.
Oh yeah. Nobody wants to the 60-year-old guy that's been at 40 different companies.
Like my dad. I remember when Dad worked at the limestone mine. They come in. He had worked. The limestone mine had been bought and sold a couple different times while Dad had worked there, and the last people that bought it got in trouble with the state for monopolizing the mining industry.
Yeah, and they kept it stable. Mark Marietta.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure somebody out there that disagrees, but they kept it stable.
Yes, but like when they got dinged for that, they sold off their most recent the assets that they had purchased, and so the mine that my dad worked at happened to be one of those. My dad and my brother both, and they got the people that bought them. They basically told everybody, "See ya."
Yeah.
And you could fill out an application on your way out the door. And they only I don't remember. It was only a handful of people that they hired back on. That basically knew all the equipment that was there. They knew the property. They knew the mine. And they did. I will say they did. After a short period of time, they did try to get Dad back, but he would make arrangements to go over and talk to him, and then nobody was there.
Yeah.
So, and Dad finally told him, "Hey, if you want me, you can come to me now."
Yeah.
And but Dad was, I don't know, how old was he? Mid 50s, I want to say. Early 50s, I don't remember. Early 50s? Yeah, I'll say early 50s. And that was I remember, Dad had a heck of a time trying to find a job because nobody wanted to hire an old guy.
Yeah, and I agree, and I've worked quite a few different places, and if I was anything but a heavy equipment mechanic, probably wouldn't have. You can't. There's so many ferry boats. We'll just say that there's only so many outfits you're going to work at, and
yeah,
I'm not saying you got to even put up with more because I've left great places. Like I worked, for the Komatsu dealer, it's the best place I ever worked. Great ownership, all that. It was just you kind of hit a wall with money or management or benefits. and you got to go somewhere. So, but yeah, in other fields, and I'm getting to be that age where I got a career change left in me, and that's it. I want to go find that place where I'm going to work and just stay.
Yeah.
It's, for the first 20 some years of my life, I chased the money, and luckily I wasn't too stupid with it. So I can do this and maybe not have to chase it as much. But
Well, and that's like where I'm at. I just want to stick it out and get my time in with the union.
yeah,
And once I got my, because I'll be honest, if I get my 20 years in, I'll be thrilled to death. And then you and I have talked about it numerous times. I'll be thrilled to death just to go. I don't care if I'm collecting fees at a state park gate entrance.
yeah. Well, and I think that's the truth though with people our age group. I don't want to say generation, just our age group. There ain't a single one of us wanting to retire. We've watched our parents slow down for a week and die. We've seen way too many people do it. We see that's what happens. My retirement is just going to be like, hey boss, I'll come. You tell me when you have to have me here. Other than that, there's like a chance I'll be here and a chance I won't.
Yeah, and that's
you pay me enough just so it didn't cost me money to come here.
Yep, and that's I still got the shop here, so I can still do some work at home, but I just because I know once retirement age gets here, I know I can't just stop. I will go crazy.
Oh yeah. Well, and
Carmen's granddad, I remember he was a prime example of that dude worked up and damn near till the day he died.
yep.
And it was he retired. But he did all kinds of small engine work out of his garage at home. I mean, everybody in the town they lived in took their stuff to him to work.
And I think at that point you're not even, it's work, but it's on. We all got those guys. A guy that sharpened our chainsaw chains, back home. That guy, he was one of the guys that retired from GE or something.
Yep.
One of the big places in Fort Wayne, and he didn't have to be doing any of it. You take him 40, 50 chains, you might get them in a month or two.
Well, it's like Richie.
Yeah, Richie.
I talked to Richie here last week on the phone, actually. He called. He's looking at buying a dozer.
Because he needs one.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
But that was like, he's retired, and he worked with me at the fuel shop. And, when the fuel shop closed, he bought one of their test stands and he started doing stuff. And he's like, when I was talking to him, I remember that first year he was done, he was like, I'm not going to do too much. Heck, in January, he did like a pump a day, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, we did more than that at the fuel shop. But for one guy doing a pump a day as retired.
Yeah. But then he got to the point we wanted him to run a P7100.
And he's like, no, I don't want to pick it up.
Yeah,
I'm like,
didn't want to pick it up.
He's like, it's too heavy. I don't want to mess with
it. He just wants to build up pumps for old Poland tractors.
And old antique farm tractors and stuff, yeah. So
and that's perfect. Why not? And
I think he said now he's only doing like maybe a few a month.
Yeah, well,
but,
good for him.
But, and I'm sure in the wintertime he probably does a few more. But, like, once it starts getting nice and he can go to tractor pulls and tractor drives, that's because he'd had I think it was a stroke.
Really?
Yeah. But he was talking about that. He was like, yeah, I had to miss a couple tractor drives. One of them was up in Minnesota. So he's going from Indiana to Minnesota just to do a tractor drive.
Yeah, well, yeah, but he also put that car suspension under the front end of his tractor and got the camper shell on it.
I forgot to ask him which tractor he took because last I knew he was working on which kind of surprised me, he was working on a John Deere 4020 to start doing tractor drives with.
Oh, gosh.
But he's got...
Oh, gosh, a 4020.
Yeah, from a Massey guy, which was weird. But, yeah. Yeah, I love seeing his tractor driving tractors because I know the first one was that Massey 35 diesel. I remember him doing that one because we were at the fuel shop at the time. And while he had that one, he started redoing that 560 International. And that one was hilarious. It had an air ride like semi-seat or something on it.
Yeah, at that point, it's like, it's just a tractor.
And then he decided he wanted something that he could get more ground speed out or more road speed out of it. And that's when we built that 6000 series Ford. And that's the one that had truck suspension under the front end of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy.
But I don't remember what he said it would do. He's like, I'll be honest, once you get about 35, 40 mile an hour, he's like, I don't want to go any faster. It gets kind of sketchy above that.
Wow. Well, the sun's starting to get low, and my trailer ain't got no lights on it.
All right. Well, we better wrap this
Hey,
up then.
Since it's Christmas, can we do a giveaway?
No, we're not doing a giveaway for Christmas because you only want to give away my stuff.
Since it's Christmas.
No.
I just
When-
you want to grow this channel, but you don't want to.
I'll tell you what. When we have more than 8 people listening, we'll discuss it.
I thought you said we had like 50.
50 downloads. It's still like the same 8 people, and I think I've paid most of them.
You got to tell your mom and her bridge girls to stop listening.
I don't know if my mom plays bridge.
Oh, that's
I
euchre
don't know.
then.
Whatever.
Yeah, same.
I guarantee you my mom doesn't play euchre either.
She's from Indiana. She plays euchre.
Not very well. Mom was never a card player. She'd play some card games, but I don't ever remember being a real big euchre player.
Euchre was full contact in our house.
I will never forget. I never played enough to be really good, but if you got me playing, I usually got pretty good, if that makes sense. I can't explain it. It was like the first few times, like I had a guy that I worked with, him and his twin brother, their birthday was around the first of the year. So they would have a big combined birthday party.
They were twins, so it's probably on the same day.
You think?
Well, you said a combined birthday party.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they didn't do a separate birthday parties. They just both did it together. These guys were like in their 30s at the time.
Okay.
But they would do a euchre tournament and a Monopoly tournament, which I wouldn't get into the Monopoly tournament. Those people were brutal. But the euchre tournament was hilarious because I'll be honest. I was like 21 years old. Carmen and I were, newly married. And I remember Doug inviting us to come to the euchre tournament. I was like, it's been a while since I played some euchre. He's like, it's all right. He's like, just come over and play. And I remember back in them days, if you went to a party, I showed up with a 2-liter Mountain Dew and a fifth of Crown Royal. And I would fix myself splash cans all night, drinking Diet Mountain Dew and Crown Royal. And when I got there, I hadn't put it together that Doug's wife's mom was sisters to a gal that went to the church that I grew up in. And her husband was a deacon at our church. And he had some sort of job doing math stuff. I mean, he was like
an accountant?
I don't know that if he was, or a statistician. I don't know what he did.
Okay.
But he was a numbers guy for sure.
Yeah.
And so this dude,
that's what you needed in euchre.
Oh, and he took euchre very serious. And this dude probably hadn't seen me in, I don't know, 6-7 years. And they put me as his partner, and that dude was furious because I'm sitting across the table. This is a guy that remembers me as
drunk on Crown.
This is a dude that remembers me as a little kid at church, and I'm sitting across the table being his partner in a euchre tournament, about half lit, and we lost, and we lost bad, and he was mad, like mad. And so we changed partners and we started playing again. And by the time we got there, it was like it started clicking again with me.
Yeah.
And I kept going alone and wound up winning and beating him. Then he was even more mad.
What are the odds of that, bud?
I thought that was funny. I will never forget that. But anyways, as we will wrap this up. As Mark said, this will be coming out the week of Christmas. So we would like to take this opportunity to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas.
You sure it's not Happy Holidays?
I'm positive.
All right.
If you don't like hearing me say Merry Christmas, find something else to listen to.
What about our Jewish friends?
Happy Hanukkah or something. Yeah, that's right.
What about our friends in Africa?
What about them?
Kwanzaa or something?
That's not a real holiday.
No, it's in a song, man. It's real.
I don't think so.
You know, I'm gonna Google this.
Okay, Google it.
Anyways,
you should listen to. Never mind.
So,
anyways, Merry
for the
Christmas.
100th listener, we're gonna give away.
No, we're not. Quit saying that. I'm serious.
I just think that we got to do something.
No, not yet.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Hope to talk to you all soon.